Byrne is a vice president and senior analyst in the Sovereign Risk Unit of Moodys Financial Institute and Sovereign Group in New York. Please welcome Tom Byrne to address our club. Tom.
What I have is 6 PowerPoint slides just to serve as a frame or reference point, but this is not a PowerPoint presentation I'm about to make. And first of all, I have to thank the Rotary Club. I can now say that in addition to heads of state, I've met people in the Rotary Club. I always saw the symbol of the Rotary Club, but I've never had this experience of seeing the people behind the Rotary Club and the work that we do, and it certainly is impressive. With that, I was talking up here with Debbie Kaufman, and Debbie asked me if I was a politician or in politics. My family name is the name of a former governor of New Jersey. And I said, no, and this is definitely not a political discussion I'm about to undertake. In fact, Moodys is a very unpolitical company, and our ratings are definitely unpolitical. And I noticed one thing, one of the hallmarks of our ratings is that ratings attempt to be not only accurate and forward-looking and objective, but also fair in the sense that we treat all rated entities the same way according to the same methodology. I guess the overarching theme that I'd like to talk about is uncertainty and how some events that have arisen over the past several years will have, I think, long-lasting ramifications. We really don't understand yet. This, I think, goes in with this so-called black swan thinking that was popularized by Nassim Taleb's book, where people have a bias where they naturally underappreciate uncertainty, and then also underappreciate that rare events could have massive consequences. Let me see if I get this right. Okay, good. This is one of the, not quite a black swan event, but the rise of China. This is from a New York Post article, by the way. And there's a couple of aspects of this I wanted to weave into my formal talk today. One is that something we all know, a lot of stuff that we have is made in China. The irony here is that the Treasury Printing Bureau no longer prints the greenback, but that's also done in China. China's the largest exporter, now larger than the US and Germany. The second is the Treasury of the United States is Hu Jintao, the Secretary of the Communist Party, which is quite not that case. But the fact is that 30% of US government debt is held by external governments, mostly central banks.
Could you please address the microphone a little bit more carefully?
Sure. Excuse me.
Several of us are having trouble hearing.
I'll do my best. So the situation now is that 30% of U.S. government debt is held by non-residents, mostly central banks. The People's Bank of China and the Bank of Japan are at the top of that list. The third aspect, Steve asked me to talk about some of the way we go about our work, and perhaps I can weave in both themes here. Years ago, when I went to China, this is probably in the early 1990s, actually before going to Moodys, the Chinese had reorganized their central banking system so that to mimic something like the Fed, where there are federal districts but not captive in any state. The Denver, Colorado Federal District is in Kansas City. At any rate, so Shanghai was established as the equivalent to the New York Fed, the Shanghai People's Bank branch. And so it was a prominent branch. The country was undergoing important institutional changes. I had just come from Hong Kong. We often combine the trips to Hong Kong and China. So I asked the deputy governor and his staff, I said to them, so when will you catch up? This is around before 1995. When will you catch up to Hong Kong as a regional and just flabbergasted by that question. I just couldn't conceive of an answer. Fast forward to the year 2010, 2011, already the Chinese are issuing renminbi-denominated securities in Hong Kong. The renminbi is in the process of being internationalized. This will take a long time, I think, but already in Shanghai, people are, particularly the senior leaders in the government, are envisaging a time when Shanghai will rival Hong Kong, and that doesn't seem so preposterous. But this is another case of the state of flux that we're in the international economy and in the international financial systems. This is the other aspect of the work that we're doing. Moodys has been rating bonds for over 100 years. In fact, the earliest bonds that Moodys rated were railway bonds to help the development to the west and the settlement to the west, American West, that is. But we, until very recently, I joined Moodys at the time of the Asian financial crisis. The Asian financial crisis really didn't affect any of the advanced countries, let alone to some extent Japan. But in terms of risks, government risk or sovereign risk, all the risk was always with the emerging markets, the Latin American countries, the peripheral countries, to the core European countries to some extent. And so none of us ever lost sleep over the creditworthiness of the ratings of certainly the mature advanced countries. Well, that's changing because of the large buildup in debt that really spiked at the time of the global financial crisis, but is continuing for a number of countries, including the United States now. And this buildup in debt poses risks over the future. Will it be funded at affordable rates? You can see that the U.S. General government debt, the federal government plus the states, equals about 93% of GDP now. Now, at the end of the Great Depression, federal government debt was only 42%. I should say as a footnote, out of that 93%, about 20% roughly are state government debts. The rest is federal government debt. So at the end of the Great Recession, we have more debt than we had at the end of the Great Depression. In 1945, you would expect that at the end of World War II, debt peaks at the time of war. War has to be financed through bonds, and it was 116%. Well, the U.S. debt trajectory is on course to hit that certainly within this next decade, unless things change. And you can see some other countries. Some of the countries that we once had rated AAA, Japan, Spain, and Ireland, are no longer rated AAA. And so this is where the uncertainty goes. And we're thinking internally in Moodys, a AAA rating is considered to be a risk-free rating. Well, 5 to 10 years from now, which of the former advanced AAA countries will remain AAA? Now, the practical implications of that is really here. This is a quite simple relationship between the bond yields, the interest that the government has to pay, and the taxpayers have to come up with, as a ratio of the debt to the economic output of a country, GDP. And there's pretty much a straight line relationship in terms of ratings and debt to GDP, more or less, which is reassuring and something that's robust. Except for the so-called safe havens, the U.S., Japan, to a lesser extent Germany. But Japan and the U.S. benefit from having safe haven qualities. The U.S. also from having a good, reputable federal government. Believe it or not, we're going through this difficult time in Washington, D.C. right now. We've been through it before in 1995. But still, the full faith and credit of the U.S. government security is really the question. And this allows the U.S. to carry much more debt than